Many storylines this week, perhaps the biggest of them all. You've got questions, right? Welcome on in. We're talking fantasy football. Glad to see you. I'm Lauren Shehadi alongside Jamey Eisenberg. This video brought to you by Norton Denier of Digital Dangers Everywhere. We're answering their questions, and we're going to do so right. So let's get to the first one of the day. Ready to go? Perhaps it is yours. I need help with two matchups this week. Should I start Ryan Grant against the Vikings or Marshawn Lynch against the Texans?
Jamey? Well, I think when you look at the way that Ryan Grant has played against the Vikings in his career, he's actually been pretty successful, and this is an opportunity for him to continue to play well against Minnesota. But when you're deciding between these two running backs, Marshawn Lynch has a tremendous matchup. You see what he should be able to do against the Houston Texans. This is a run defense that has been better as of late, but has not been great for the course of the season. So I think you'll see Marshawn come into this game. He's starting to build a little bit of momentum, had a touchdown last week, and I think he should do well again. So if I have to choose between these two guys, I'm probably going to take Marshawn Lynch, although this is one of those scenarios where I think both guys fall on the cusp of #2 fantasy running backs, and both should put up similar production, but the upside favors Lynch.
Okay, Ryan Grant was money, but it was against Cleveland, so it's all about the matchup. It's all about your second question of the day. Which two should I start in Week 8 of the following three running backs between Kevin Smith, Joseph Addai, and Michael Turner?
Again, this is a scenario where all three guys are going to probably be in similar production, but who has the most upside of this group? Kevin Smith, to me, is an easy one of this, and that's typically not the way you would see this question answered, because Joseph Addai, Michael Turner, better offenses, better players, better stats for the majority of the season. The question comes down to then Joseph Addai or Michael Turner. I think you'll see Addai play well. I don't know how much he's going to be a factor in terms of being the go-to guy in this offense because of the passing game for the Colts. Michael Turner, though, is going to be one of those guys that's going to have the opportunity to score. Listen, he hasn't been running well for the majority of the season. He's facing a New Orleans defense that's been very good against the run. But I think, again, when you're talking about upside, who has a chance to score a touchdown, who has a chance to get the majority of touches, I think that favors Turner just a little bit over Addai. So Kevin Smith is a lock of this group, and then it's just Turner a little bit ahead of Addai of the next two.
I was interested to see this answer because Addai was your start of the week for Week 7.
He was. He actually had 12 fantasy points. I think he'll be in similar type production, but I think Michael Turner has a chance to get in that 15 fantasy point.
All right, well, a lot of big games. Denver at Baltimore being one of them. Can Joe Flacco, this is my own question, I guess, can Joe Flacco crack that defense, Jamey? And we're going to get to this next question in just a minute.
Yeah, I think so. When you look at Eli Manning versus Joe Flacco, I think that's one of those scenarios where Eli Manning has a tough matchup against Philadelphia. He's been playing poorly since this foot injury. And then you talk about Joe Flacco. I like him coming off of a bye. I think Denver's in line for their first tough game in terms of facing an opponent where they'll be playing from behind, where they're going to struggle a little bit, facing a tough defense. Baltimore's defense coming off 2 weeks. I think they'll make Denver struggle a little bit offensively. And then Flacco's just been throwing the ball all over the place. He's been doing a great job against pretty much every defense that he's faced so far this year. I like him at home. Remember, Lauren, this is something we talked about a lot last year. It really hasn't played itself out so far this year. West Coast to East Coast for those 1 o'clock games.
I've heard that so many times.
This is one of those scenarios. Denver coming to Baltimore for a 1 o'clock start. I know both teams coming off a bye, but I think Baltimore's going to be ready.
Kevin, does that answer your question? Hopefully we will answer this next question for you. Third one of the day now. 2 dilemma week. Oh no, dilemma week for Ron. I can only play 3 of these wide receivers. Please help. Mike Sims, Walker, Miles Austin, Reggie Wayne, Vincent Jackson, or Hoosh.
Yeah, talk about a great group of wide receivers. You got to make some trades because this is one of those scenarios where you can really get some value for one of these wide receivers. I think you got to go with the 2 guys who have been hot for the last few weeks, and that's Mike Sims, Walker, and Miles Austin. You can't bench those guys with the way they're playing. And then it comes down to what do you do with Reggie Wayne and Vincent Jackson? Well, keep in mind one thing. Reggie Wayne dealing with a groin problem, so that's the guy you got to keep an eye on. If he plays, and I think he's going to, I think you start him because, again, he is the go-to guy in that offense. He's going to do a fantastic job against San Francisco. Now, in terms of Vincent Jackson, like him as well, been playing absolutely fantastic, been one of the best wide receivers so far this year. But Phillip Rivers, for whatever reason, maybe it's just because they run all over the Raiders, like everybody does, Phillip Rivers doesn't put up tremendous stats against Oakland. So I think you're going to see Vincent Jackson be the 4th guy of that group. TJ Houshmandzadeh clearly the 5th guy, even though I think all 5 guys are going to play well this week. I think you can start them in the majority of leagues. But, Lauren, for this specific question, you got to go with the 2 young guys who are playing well in Sims Walker and Austin. And then I think Reggie Wayne, just a slight nod over Vincent Jackson.
None of them bad options, though, right?
None of bad. That's why you got to make a trade.
Okay, well, let's talk about defense. I have the Jets defense.
Okay.
Good?
So much.
Like my fantasy team. Okay, which defense should I start? Philadelphia against the Giants or San Diego against Oakland?
Yeah, and this is interesting. We don't usually talk defense a lot in these shows, but I think that's a key to a lot of fantasy rosters because you get those hidden points, those hidden yardage, as they like to talk about with most NFL coaches with special teams. Well, for fantasy owners, it's typically that hidden production that you get from your DST. And this week, you have the choice probably because a lot of these defenses are on the waiver wire. Two in particular, San Diego being one, Arizona being another. They're facing offenses that are turnover prone. They're playing at home. I think you'll see San Diego, of this group, of that question, play much better than Philadelphia. Listen, Philadelphia is missing some key players on defense. They add Will Witherspoon, but they're missing some help at linebacker there. I think you'll see the Giants be able to move the ball against the Eagles much more so than the Raiders will against the Chargers. Love the Chargers this week. Darren Sproles, you never know if he's going to return one for a touchdown. And I think you'll see, as long as Jamarcus Russell's at quarterback for the Raiders, whoever's playing opposite them is going to have a big game. So I think you'll see the Jets, as you talked about, they came off a big game last week. Probably helped you a little bit, even though you didn't get a win. But I think you'll see that the Chargers, DST, be very good.
Can I tell you why I didn't get a win? Because I needed Brian Westbrook and Chris Cooley for 11 points. They both go down, right? Okay, so I need a win this week. I'm going against my rival in my league. She's talking trash on the message boards. I need to win. We'll keep you posted.
There you go.
And for all your game time decisions, fantasy football today, for Jamey Eisenberg, I'm Lauren Shehadi. We'll talk to you soon.